Whatever purpose, if you want to have a strong immune system, you have to have a well-functioning metabolism, okay? So as far as generally speaking is concerned, you don't want to just worry about the immune system. You want to make sure that all these basic food items that we usually talk about in the seminars and stuff that they've been taken care of, or that they are being taken care of kind of at the same time. Okay, because for example, if the body doesn't metabolize vitamin B, the B vitamins properly, then the immune system is going to suffer, and it's not going to be able to perform the way you are instructing it. There's cross communications going on, between the immune system and the brain, for example. Even though, as you know, the major cellular communications coordination happens through the traditional Chinese medicine system. So during the immune response, the brain and the immune system have to talk to each other. So by the way, that's why hypothalamus is always in the combinations of treatments. That kind of activates that pathway. So the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is involved in the sympathetic nervous system. And of course, hormones are involved. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind as you're trying to focus on the immune system. So anyway, I just want to bring up the notion that you can educate. In fact, you must educate the immune system. This is a printed article from the New York Times from a couple of years ago. Educate your immune system. And this was really about more like autoimmune conditions. And it's just simply, it was looking at populations of different populations, and they happened to look at the incidence of celiac disease and type 1 diabetes, which are both autoimmune diseases. So they looked at a population in Finland, and then another population which lived in the same environment across the border in Russia. Okay, and they were looking at all these allergic incidents, and the incidence of these diseases, autoimmune diseases, was much higher in Finland than across the border in Russia. And basically, to make a long story short, what they figured out is the reason why it was much lower in Russia is because it was the people in Russia lived much dirtier. There was more filth and things in Russia, and their immune systems were just simply more robust. Okay, in other words, they had stimulated human immune cells and memory cells and educated their immune system on, dealing with germs and with microbes and pathogens. All right, so there you have it. So filth is not all bad. We're going to talk about this coronavirus today because it is so everybody's scared to death about this coronavirus. What I want to show you how our immune system actually deals with these viruses. Okay, it recognizes different viruses by their genetic makeup. It's also the microbes are also recognized by their genes. Okay. And so they've done some research, of course, on this new virus here. Well, it's not a new virus. It's a mutated virus. Okay, they call it right now a novel virus. So the comparison of the genomes of these 3 strains of coronavirus show that they're almost identical. Okay, with only 5 nucleotide differences in the genome nucleotide out of a couple of 100,000, which is very small because viruses are very small. So basically what I'm saying is this, most people have already been exposed to coronavirus, or at least the energy that's in the software right now is just in apostrophe the old previous coronaviruses that have been around, and that new one is not in the software yet. But the genetic structure of this virus, which is very much identical to the previous viruses, and that's how the immune system deals with these and recognizes these microbes or these pathogens are almost identical. So, you shouldn't have the concept that if you treat or do a feedback on coronavirus, you're totally going to miss it because this is a new virus altogether. Well, it's not. It's very similar. It's just got a couple of SNPs, like human SNPs, same thing that have mutated and they're different. And that the immune system has to learn new, and it will, But the major structure of the virus, which you can see here, is the same. So it will recognize it and it will use that memory of having been exposed before. Does that make sense? It's important to realize that it's not an entirely new virus at all. It's just a new variant of a virus, and our immune systems are totally capable of adapting to this couple of new nucleotides that have been mutated in this new variety of coronavirus. Okay, so there is no reason to either not prepare or to panic at all. Okay, so these are some genes here that have to do with, that are immune system genes. These are interleukins. There's a whole bunch in there, from interleukin 1 through 12, and so, well, we'll see that when we look at the software. Okay, so there's many, there's hundreds of immune system genes, okay? These are just a few, and but one thing I've learned over time here is that none of these genes is purely immune. They all do multiple things, but these are mostly focused on the immune system. And the immune system is more than just pathogens. It's also inflammation and all right. Well, let's take a look. So what the heck are we going to do about coronavirus? Well, first of all, we want to lay the foundation for a strong immune system. So we got to get rid of allergies. We got to get rid of food sensitivities. We have to have a strong detoxification system. So all these things go hand in hand with the immune system because they're all interconnected. Okay, so I might as well use this occasion to kind of propose a whole new way of thinking. And by the way, the longer I do that, the more I realize that, energy medicine and the medical system are two separate systems altogether. They really are. There's, of course, overlap because we talk about the same things. We talk about viruses, we talk about allergies, we talk about all the things that medicine talks about also. But we are in the energetic plane, which is way larger in front of the physical paradigm, which is what the medical system sees and treats. So we have to think totally different. And when it comes to the immune system, that's important too, because when you have an energetic fingerprint of a pathogen like a virus, well, so we attach it to a word like coronavirus, and then we have all these preconceptions of what that is, coronavirus. It's what's been on TV the last 6 months. Like, I was just at Staples buying a couple computers, and the guy told me the virus is stopping our supply. We're running out of laptops. And at first I didn't get it. I said, oh, which virus is that? And he said, oh, well, you know, the virus over in China, they had to shut down their factories and we're running out of supply. So it's like you know, the virus has taken on new meaning. It's now the, anyway, for these couple of months, it'll be the coronavirus out of China. So you can just type into the search function, and that part, you know, I've had in the little video I sent out a few weeks ago before. So we have already 2 coronaviruses in the software. Okay. Now apparently this is not a flu virus type. You know, neither is Epstein-Barr, by the way. Epstein-Barr is not a flu virus. I think it's in the pox family. Not entirely sure. Okay, so so what I like to propose is a whole new way of thinking of developing immunity, you know, away from or as an alternative to the old-fashioned vaccination that we're doing. I'm trying to develop, you know, an alternative vocabulary so it doesn't sound so medical. But if I wanted to develop immunity rather than a vaccine for coronavirus, so here is the treatment you could put together, and I think that would qualify very well to a modern age vaccination. Of course, we have to call it really something else. So developing immunity, educating the immune system. So remember, we want to get the nervous system involved. We, of course, want to get the organs involved. I'm not so sure about the hormones. So RNA is what the viruses contain, okay? Well, I just read this morning some viruses do have DNA, but mostly they're made of RNA only. Well, anyway, I would just put all of these in here. All of those anyway. So if it's a person that has had dozens and dozens of treatments, you know, that's probably good enough. If it's somebody fairly new, then you would add BBF, that's the leftover from NAET, brain body function, I guess. The newer software, the ones, so I apologize, I have actually last year's version still in here. Now it's called MDB, Mind Body Balance, which is the same thing. Okay, so if you do a quick cycle and you would run this, right now we got Joe Public, so let's give Joe Public a little bit of boost and immunity to the coronavirus. I'm in Metaspace. Oh yeah. Sorry, you have to. I did the same thing in the video, and now I remember. You'd have to come over here if you want to do more than one item, right? Okay. So we're doing these 2 varieties of coronavirus, and remember, we are talking directly to the immune system. So. And the immune system is buried in our DNA. Okay, it's our DNA that operates the immune system. Physiologically or anatomically, actually, anatomically, the immune system is all over our bodies. You know, it's the bone marrow is a big part of the immune system, and then of course we have all the organs. You know, they're all involved in the immune function. But the knowledge on how to respond is in the DNA, right? And we're talking to that area, even though we got the organs in here. Now you can become fancy and you could add specific organs, you know, especially let's say if you know that somebody has a weakness there, you know, like the spleen or the liver or the thymus. Those are all things, but they're all kind of collectively covered by this organs frequency. But you could be more specific and add that. And the way we do that is, okay, so let's do that. We'll come back here. So So what I'm getting at is there's different levels of precision, or you know, there's this. I would say this is a very basic coronavirus thought. THOT, thought, which is an alternative way of developing immunity. I'm hesitant to use the word vaccination because that means a very specific thing, a physical thing, physically injecting antigens from dead viruses or and so on. This is just presenting the energetic fingerprint of these particular viruses, coronaviruses, to the DNA and the immune system. The beautiful thing about presenting general frequencies to the DNA is because the genes are like resonating entities. You know, they're literally like an instrument with strings. They're like strings. They resonate with the environment, and whenever a particular factor that's in a body, whether it's a food item or whether it's a virus, resonates with it will turn on a particular gene, okay? And miraculously, the genes responsible for coronavirus will activate and will recognize this frequency and will say, oops, okay, it's our turn, and turn on and start producing things, you know, like, well, maybe I could just say memory cells, even so that would be the long-term process. It takes a little time to produce actually memory cells, but it will produce memory. And that's what we want. So if then the actual physical contact does come about, you know, the immune system will have experienced this particular energy before, this particular frequency, and will be that much faster in responding. That would be the basic concept. When it comes to precision, okay, there's no limit. Of course, you can get so, you know, and we are going to get more and more precise. So right now, as we're debating on how you can, so right now we're talking about prophylaxis. We're talking about developing immune, we're talking about developing immunity, okay, or educating the immune system. Now, should we, if you're worried about somebody actually having acute coronavirus infection, of course, that would enter your consideration on what to put into the feedback, big time. In fact, you know, the software will probably give you some ideas of what's, you know, you can see that from the interleukin picture that shows up and so on and so forth. When there's a serious infection, there's always some interleukins showing up at the top. So we'll come back to the acute situation in a minute, but let's right now we're thinking prophylactically, or developing immunity, or being ready for, you know, coming in contact with a new type of coronavirus. So what would we want to do? I think the thymus was probably one of the most important things. Okay, so you type in thymus, so we could definitely, we could add this. Interleukin 7 would be a good one. Interleukin 7 is a good one. Okay, because it's active in the bone marrow, it's active in the thymus, so that sounds great. That sounds great. In fact, well, anyway, yeah. So isoleucine is really, that would be something you could consider to giving as a supplement, you know, or you want to make sure that people are not allergic, or rather, you know, have trouble metabolizing this, you know, if they're sensitive to it or something. This would be an amino acid type of, well, what we innate people call allergy, but just a metabolic quirk. All right, so presumably something to consider in as far as supplementation is concerned. So now we've just expanded the feedback to include a specific organ and a specific immune factor. Okay, so this is an awesome treatment, you know. Of course, when you when you go out of here, you unfortunately you lose these things here. We'll keep the brain involved. We'll take the organs out because now we got a specific organ, the thymus gland. All right, so that's one way of doing it. And then, you know, healing is an art, so you develop your own art. I'm just giving you some ideas on how to go about it. So there you go. Okay, now we're resonating with the genes that are active in the thymus gland, which includes the gene involved in producing interleukin-7. You know, which is so that this is called translation and transcription, right? So right now there's very little interleukin-7 in your body. So now when the coronavirus hits, you know, then your body has to come up with interleukin-7 really fast. So how does it do that? Well, the gene responsible for interleukin-7, which happens to be expressed heavily in the thymus and the bone marrow, because you're going to need stem cells, so your spleen can make white blood cells really fast, is going to miraculously, you know, open up as a template, and then there's this translation going on and transcription of the interleukin-7 molecule, and it'll make tons and tons and tons and tons of this copies of that interleukin-7, like really fast, thousands, each of the cells that are involved in that. And then they go out and they do their job and they start, you know, mounting an immune defense. So now, let's say you have a mutation in the gene, which I don't know which gene is responsible for interleukin-7, but since we don't know, if we just resonate with interleukin-7, that gene is going to be, you know, tickled or you know, oscillate. It will oscillate and turn on. But let's say you have a mutation in there or a SNP, you know, so now this gene is going to be lazy, so the interleukin-7 is going to not being produced as fast as ideal, you know. So those are the people then that, you know, they die because they just can't get well enough fast enough, you know. However, how would we determine that? Well, I mean, that's why we do scans, because these kind of things we can figure out in scans. So I'm just going to stop this, okay? We're still pretty much talking about prophylaxis. So let's add some. Let's just say bone marrow is really. I mean, the bone marrow is so important. It's your reservoir for stem cells, and as you know, all tissues turn over constantly, and all these new cells that are needed to make fresh skin and new liver and new organs and new everything, even repair your DNA. All that requires stem cells. So that reservoir is your bone marrow. So it is like as essential to life as anything else. All right. So bone broth. It's never sounded as good. So let's put spleen. See, spleen is in organ mix, so that's why when we have it in here, it's covered. Okay, there's this isoleucine again. So definitely isoleucine is involved in the immune system. I did not quite know that, but I guess because of it's involved in sinus function and spleen, pituitary. So if we wanted to, you know, we could put the spleen in here also. It's an important, of course. The spleen is important for the immune system because it makes white blood cells. So the stem cells are being liberated out of the bone marrow, you know, and then they kind of float out to the top. And anyway, they end up in the bloodstream, and the blood takes it to the spleen, and the spleen takes them out, and it matures them into whatever white blood cell is needed right now. So this is a virus thing. So we don't need macrophages so much. They kill bacteria, you know. We need we're going to need T cells and such, and B cells and lymphocytes. And so, okay. All right. So, okay. So just for fun, so let me go back. Let me go back to. Well, let me see. Maybe will this let me do a? Will this let me do a thing without? Well, yeah. All right, I wanted to show you a little trick when you're looking for non-functioning things. Bear with me, I may have to shut down. Well, that's interesting. So it just checked the ones that are in this. I didn't even know it had this capability. It was just checking, aligning the ones that were in this little lineup here. Huh. Immunoglobulin M. So theoretically, that's another one that could be put in the treatment, you know. It's the first antibody to be made by the body to fight a new infection. So let's put it in. There you go. Okay, so I want to clear that. All right, I'll do Joe Public again. All right, okay. So now we're switching to an acute situation, okay? So let's say we are looking at an acute case or a suspicious, you know, somebody's sick, you don't know what it is. So you don't know what it is. You don't worry about finding the word coronavirus. Don't worry about it. If, let's say, Lassa, if they're sick, and they very well may, you know, they're just coming back from China, let's say, or from the cruise ship, and Lassa virus comes up, or a Russian fever, or, you know, something else but coronavirus, it doesn't matter. You put that in the treatment because we're working with frequencies, and we're just trying to help out the immune system to get its act together quickly and get that immune response built up very specifically fast, and not wait for 2 weeks in quarantine and see, you know, until you get sick, or either you get sick, you die, or you're good. But, you know, we want to use immediately start into action. So whatever pathogen comes up, you want to put into the treatment, even if it doesn't meet your expectations. On the other hand, so while we're talking, okay, while this is running through, if you are working on somebody with Epstein-Barr virus, chronic Epstein-Barr virus is epidemic, it's 90% of the population have it confirmed, so it's probably like 99% or something. So you know this, and you know they have thyroid issues, and they've had it for 30 years. So you're going to have to treat that consistently over several months to get rid of that Epstein-Barr virus. So you don't want to rely on the scan every time, you know. Of course, the ones of you that work with vials, it's easy. You just use the vial to check it. But even so, if you work without vials, you don't wait until it shows up in the scan again. You just assume until all the symptoms are gone, or until you can muscle test for zero reaction with Epstein-Barr virus. You search for it and you put it in the treatment anyway, even so it didn't come up in the scan, because, you know, it doesn't necessarily come up. I mean, the software doesn't know what you have in mind. It just looks at what's going on right now. So then you want to search for it and put it in the treatment anyway. and consistently until that chronic infection is taken care of. It's something. So anyway, I'm going to focus a lot on the immune system in 2020. So you should make it to one of the seminars. It's kind of important to realize all that stuff because these, since I've become aware of just how nasty Epstein-Barr virus is, all of a sudden, everybody that has cancer in my clinic also has an Epstein-Barr virus infection. And weird cancers anyway, like bladder cancer and kidney cancer. And I've been avoiding these people for years and years and years, but I can't keep them out anymore because everybody's got cancer. And they make it sound that it's no big deal anymore. It's just a chronic illness, But anyway, what I'm getting at, it's important that you folks know how to talk to educate the immune system, and getting rid of chronic infections, which is yet another category, is super, super, super important to prevent cancer. All right, so let's see what Joe Public is suffering from. Mycoplasm, okay, pertussis, and lung flukes. Okay, so remember, well, let me say this, okay? So I call this the prophylactic coronavirus treatment, right? Okay, I just want to point out this. So if there is a pathogen coming up here, okay, in the top 16, I think this is, then you want to make sure you want to put them in. I mean, they're for real. They're not there because they ate some or whatever. They're there because they're there. They're there. They're present. So we always want to put them in, okay? In this case, sure, we'll put the bacteria in too. Right. Oh, that's interleukin-7. Look at that. So, I mean, since what we just learned, so that means interleukin-7 is already kind of happening, but let's make it happen a little more. But what I want to point out here is the genes, and sometimes the enzymes too. This gene here is not necessarily in trouble or not working right. In fact, it's probably more often than not. Now, sometimes there is a gene that is in trouble, but more often than not, this gene is just active right now. So it doesn't really need to be treated. So if you really want to get the genes involved, and the functionality of the software will represent that at some point. But right now we have, so that's a little trick. So you just drag this thing all the way to the bottom, right click, and then these genes down here, they're sleeping. That they didn't respond at all. There was no oscillation going on. There was nothing. So if you have a food item here, that means it's good. There's no allergy or anything. It doesn't mean anything there. But the toll receptor 4 gene, well, that should be active right now because we're working on the immune system. That's an immune gene. So that gene is like dead, or it's sleeping. It's not. We need to activate it. So we'll put that in the treatment, okay? And now, if you see viruses and things here, it doesn't mean that they're there. They're at the top. They're at the top. But these genes are not happening. Okay, so this is a good way of, if you don't want a muscle test, and it's kind of tough. In fact, I've been playing with this for a couple months now, and consistently I always find that the genes down here are pretty much what needs to be expressed. They need to be expressed. They need to be woken up, and you don't have to go up very high. Okay, so these two is fine. It's perfect. Toll receptor 4 is an immune gene. And of course, MTHFR. And of course, MTHFR is involved in all kinds of things. It's basically involved in the methylation of folate, but folate is involved in many, many aspects of neurology and immune function. So this would be a more acute approach to the same problem. Okay, so all right, let me go down a little bit. There's no virus. Huh? No virus. Okay. So, anyway, that will be an acute treatment, okay? Now, unless you're doing chronic, in which case you override stuff like that too, whatever shows up here is what's happening. And if you expected corona, but corona is not there, but this is that, then treat that. Okay. Now, people that are using vials, that's always a good way of double checking and making sure that, you know, even so the software may not have realized that it's a priority, it's still an issue, and then you treat it anyway. And you can always find it by searching for it. So so that's the acute version. That would be the acute version. Now, okay. So let's talk briefly about a chronic version, okay? Chronic infections are epidemic. Everybody has it, especially people that have issues, any kind of health issue. We all have chronic infections. In fact, many of us have inherited infections from our parents. Epstein-Barr virus has been around forever. You will find, if you start looking, that virus is actually in their DNA, and it's very, very hard to get it out. But you can get it out. You have to work on it for a while. So, so okay, I saved that. So okay, here's Epstein-Barr. So if you just type in Epstein like this, then they all come up. Oh, cool. Oh, all right. Well, this is usually stuff we cover at the seminars, but here we go. So this is the Epstein-Barr from Nate. This is the Epstein-Barr from the show method. And this HHV4 this is the chronic version of Epstein-Barr. So Epstein-Barr is a pox virus. It's just like shingles. So this is the shingles version of Epstein-Barr. It's the chronic version. So what does this gene do? Particles immune complex. Oh, acts as a receptor for Epstein-Barr. Huh. What does that mean? Okay. All right. Well, I'll be back in the clinic tomorrow, so I'm going to have at least 3, 4, 5 people with chronic Epstein-Barr. So I've forgotten about that gene, and I don't know for sure what that means. It's a receptor for Epstein-Barr. But for now, let's assume that that's a good thing. And so we'll put it in. And so for chronic stuff, I find that interleukin 10 and 12 are good. So let's use 12. Well, we can do both. We can do both. It's just okay. Naturally produced by dendritic cells, macrophages, neutrophils, B lymphoplastoid cells. So it's okay. It's an important immune factor. And let's put in interleukin 10. So I hope you're with me because you know, immune function is difficult, but I just want to point out that you want to, as you sort things out, you want to think about the situation. Is it acute? Is it prophylactic, or is it chronic? And there's slightly different approaches depending into how much detail you're going to get into. So don't go crazy about it. You just the easiest thing is just to start out like we did in the beginning. So this could be possibly important too. Okay, in any infection for that matter. Doesn't have to be chronic. This is also important in the acute infections. T helper cell too. So this we put together for a chronic infection. All right. But don't be discouraged. So it's not really complicated. It's just the thinking is, but the more you do that, the more you'll get it. And please consider to come to one of these seminars happening. That's where we started out, okay? Working on the coronavirus and the SARS virus and giving the immune system a heads up about those particular viruses. Now, mind you, this kind of thinking is good for any pathogen, whether it's, in another few months, nobody's going to be talking about coronavirus anymore. Nobody's talking about SARS. I mean, I treat people all the time for SARS. It comes up in the scans regularly. At least once a week or at least once every 2 weeks. And I always put it in. I don't think SARS, that's over now. That happened in 2000 and whatever. No, it's they're around. Coronaviruses are around and they're going to be around. And we are going to be the salvation for mankind, I'm telling you, because, not only does nature mutate just to survive and to produce new species here, but we're doing it now, premeditated. We're doing it intentionally. We're splicing and messing around with these genes of all these bugs and mosquitoes, etc., in the name of preventing this and that and the other thing. And what we're really doing is just creating more monsters that are new, that our DNA doesn't know about yet, hasn't experienced yet, and we can educate it. We must educate it like that, and that's the key to survival. This is what's going to going to help beat these things that are coming down the pike. What I'm getting at is 6 months from now, we're going to talk about another monster bug, a different one. But the principles will remain the same on how to deal with it.